So I've been a pastor for over 14 years now, and I've been a Christian for just about 30 years now. But I'm still human, and being a human, sometimes we have doubts. Sometimes we have things that come up in our mind that we think, is there really even a God out there? And this matters because so often we're searching for hope. We're not just searching for God, we're searching for hope. We're searching for purpose and joy in life. And so many people today are lacking that hope. But in the Bible, God promises us hope. So if God is real, then not only do we know that he's there, but we can have hope and joy. So I ran across this article online the other day. It's called The Top 10 Reasons to Believe in God. So just real quick, I thought I'd go through these top 10 reasons. And it's not that any one of these reasons, or even altogether all these reasons, will convince anybody to believe in God. Certainly it takes an element of faith. But there's just too many things like this that if you look at them honestly, I don't think that it's possible to outright say that there is no God. So number one, the inevitability of faith. That's a hard word to say. What that's basically saying is that no matter what, no matter who you are, you're going to believe in something. Even though there's a lot of people who claim to know everything, nobody knows everything. Only God is omniscient. And because none of us know everything, there's always the possibility that there's information out there that we don't know that proves that there's a God. So to just outright say that there's no evidence for God is to claim to be omniscient. But the thing is, none of us are like that. When it comes down to it, we all have to believe something. We all have to say, I'm going to have faith in this. And even atheists have to have faith in science or faith in the future, faith in whatever it is, faith in the idea that there is no God in order to say factually and conclusively when they say that there is no God. Number two, the limitations of science. I think science is a great thing, and we can learn all kinds of things from studying the world, studying the universe. I mean, really amazing things. But when it comes down to it, we don't and probably can't know everything. One of the most obvious examples of this is the origins of the universe. For a long time, they were talking about the Big Bang, and now there's various models out there that some of them include the Big Bang, some of them don't, and these kinds of things. But when it comes down to it, even that, nobody really knows what caused it. And most scientists agree that it's impossible to know what caused it. And by saying that, I'm not saying that God caused it, or that we have to just believe that God caused it. What I'm saying is there's a limitation to science. So somebody who says, I believe in science rather than God, basically by their own admission is saying that they can't know everything, and therefore, how can they possibly rule out the existence of God? Number three, the problems of evolution. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not necessarily saying that evolution isn't a thing. In fact, I do believe in some forms of evolution. It's proven that microevolution is a thing. Species adapt within that species. That's very, very clear. But I've talked to many Christian scientists over the years that say, and I'm no scientist myself, but I've talked to many Christian scientists over the years that say that the case for evolution is completely overstated. To say that all life, including plants, animals, us, apes, everything, I'm not necessarily going there, but to say that all of it came from one source, one organism, is just overstating what we know about science. There's absolutely no evidence to say that human beings came from the same thing, the same stuff as trees. There's ideas, there's conjectures, there's hypotheses, but none of these things have been proven. I'm actually not against evolution being taught as a theory, and I totally understand that theory in terms of scientific language means fact for all practical purposes, but we really should temper that with, we don't really know all of this for certain. Of course, I hope that scientists continue to study these things and look for these links and do experiments to see if they can recreate those same kinds of conditions. But to say that we all came from the same source and to not even know, how that we came together at all, how life even is a thing, and to say that all of that happened without God overseeing the process, if it's a thing, it seems like the evidence right now points in the opposite direction. Number four, the habits of the heart. The thing is, we all long for something. Throughout the course of human history, people have cried out to God or gods, and we've longed for something to be out there. I've even talked to many atheists today who say that they totally recognize the desire in us for something to be out there. They'll factually tell themselves, well, there's not, so therefore it's pointless to pray. But I find it interesting that almost universally we all long for that. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes that says that God has put eternity into our hearts. There's also a verse in Acts 17 that says that God has made us that we should seek the Lord and to feel for him, although he's not far from any of us. C.S. Lewis said something like, if we find in ourselves a longing that nothing on this earth can satisfy, then maybe the most logical conclusion is that we were made for another world. Number five, the background of Genesis. And this one's simply talking about how we can actually find all the things that we found in Genesis. All the places that you read about in Genesis, these are actual places you can go. And this is really true of all the Bible. The Bible was written by real people in real places and documenting real events. And very similarly, number six, the nation of Israel. The Bible, of course, documents how the nation of Israel came about, and it describes all these kinds of things that the nation of Israel would have to go through. And we've seen that played out through history. And even though many, many times the nation of Israel has been attacked, like in World War II, for example, over and over and over again, we see God's hand in protecting them. Even though they go through horrible things, they've been on the brink of extinction, and yet God pulls them through. Because God's not done with them yet. The Bible describes how they're going to be fully restored, just as I believe that God is fully restoring all things. Every aspect of the earth, every aspect of the universe, every single person is going to be restored to God, according to 1 Corinthians. God is reconciling all people to himself, and that comes through Jesus. Number 7, the claims of Christ. Of course, there were many prophecies about Jesus before Jesus was even born, but then Jesus himself shows up, makes these claims that he is God, that he is the Savior, and then he dies and rises again. And then his followers who saw him after his resurrection go on to preach the gospel, and many of them died confessing Christ and dying for the things that they said that they saw. And really, I think this is the biggest one of all of these. Jesus himself is the evidence for our faith. And I know it was a long time ago, and I know that there are some people who say that he didn't even exist and it was just kind of a myth that developed over time. But every reputable historian will say that yes, Jesus really did exist, he really did die on a cross, and at least that his followers really did claim to see him risen from the dead, and then went on to die for their faith. There's just no getting around that Jesus was a real person, so something has to be done with that. So number 8, the evidence of miracles. Not only did Jesus do a bunch of miracles while he was alive, the Bible records a bunch of miracles, of course, but the greatest miracle of all was that Jesus himself rose from the dead. And if Jesus rose from the dead, he proves everything that he said, he proves what the Bible says about him, and he proves that we can put our faith in him. Number 9, the details of nature. And this goes back to the whole science thing. Some people say that we don't really need the idea of God because we can see how everything works together in nature. And if there's really a God out there at all, then why would God be concerned about us when he's busy running everything else in the universe? But the Bible actually says the exact opposite. Like God knows, cares for the sparrows, he cares for the lilies of the field, and he knows every hair on our head. And if God so clothes them, then we can trust that God's going to take care of us too. He cares about us far more than anything else in the universe. And God's not limited in power. He can do all these things at the same time. And it's amazing to me how all the details of the universe line up so that we can have life on this planet. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, but I read how people have done the math in terms of saying how impossible it is for life to even exist. It's like God organized everything both on our planet, in our solar system, and really all of the universe so that we can know him and have a relationship with him through Jesus. That's pretty cool. And finally, number 10, the voice of experience. Almost a third of the people on the planet confess to be Christians, and then another 25% confess to be Muslim. And of course, there's other monotheistic religions out there as well, but with so many people believing in a God, a singular God, it's almost impossible to just outright rule that out and say it's hogwash. And I'm certainly not saying that the majority should rule, or that we should believe everyone out there who has an outlandish claim. But with over half the world believing in a God, I think we just can't rule that out completely. Almost every single one of these people claim to have not just a belief in God, but a relationship with God. These are people who say, I've encountered God. I know him. He knows me. He helps me get through the day. Through him, I have hope. I have joy. He's my purpose in living. You see, God doesn't just command us to follow him, to command us to believe in him, but he actually invites us into a relationship with him. He wants to show you his love. He wants to give you hope. He wants to give you joy. And you can have all of these things and so much more through a relationship with Jesus. Like I said, I don't think any of these things definitively prove that God exists. It does take an element of faith. But it's not blind faith. Like some of these things, and actually many more things, many like cosmological arguments, ontological arguments, these kinds of things, we have rational reasons to believe in God. I think these are just scratching the surface, honestly. But for me, it really comes down to Jesus himself. If he rose from the dead, I can't ignore that. And even though I still sometimes have doubts because I'm human, I can place my faith in the one who had perfect faith, who lived the perfect life that I failed to live, and then died in my place. So maybe you feel like you've been lacking the hope that I've been talking about, and you've just kind of felt dead inside. If that's the case, I want you to watch this next video on the screen right here. And from that, you'll see that in Jesus, you really can come alive. God bless you, and we'll see you over there.